Is Apple finally losing its mind? Or is this the smartest move they've made in an entire decade? Because right now, on paper, the iPhone 17 looks insane. We're talking about a phone launching in 2026, priced around $650 to $699, that still ships with a 60Hz display. In a world where budget Android phones are rocking 120Hz panels for half the price, that sounds like a joke. It sounds like Apple is trolling us. It sounds like a straight-up ripoff. But if you stop staring at the spec sheet for just a second and actually look at what this phone is built to do and who it's built for, the story flips completely. New leaks from supply chain sources and insiders, like Digital Chat Station, are painting a very different picture of the iPhone 17e. Apple is not designing this phone for the loud minority of tech enthusiasts fighting in comment sections over refresh rates. They're designing it for the silent majority who buy a phone, use it every day, and keep it for 5 or 6 years. This is not just a cheap iPhone. With the rumored specs we're seeing, especially a huge RAM upgrade and Apple's next-gen A19 chip to iPhone 17e could quietly become the most powerful sleeper phone of the entire 2026 generation. So in this video, we're diving deep into the iPhone 17e to answer one simple question. Is this the ultimate scam or the best value flagship of 2026? Let's start with the controversy, the display, because this is the number one reason people are furious online. Every forum, every tweet, every YouTube comment section, everyone's stuck on the same point. Reports say the iPhone 17e is sticking with a classic 60Hz OLED panel. I know. It's 2026. Your budget Android has 120Hz. Your gaming handheld has 120Hz. Some mid-range Samsung Galaxy A series and Pixel phones have buttery smooth displays for a fraction of the price. So how on earth is Apple justifying almost $700 for a 60Hz screen when devices like the Samsung Galaxy S26 and upcoming Pixel lineup have moved way beyond that? On paper, it's indefensible. On a spec sheet comparison, Apple loses badly. But here's the brutal truth about Apple's strategy. They know their real audience better than we do. The target buyer for the iPhone 17e is not someone upgrading from an iPhone 15 Pro Max. It's someone using an iPhone 11 and iPhone 12, an older iPhone SE, maybe even an XR or 8 still hanging on these. People have never experienced promotion. They don't care about 120Hz because they've never lived with it day to day. They're not scrubbing through menus looking for micro stutters. They're looking for rich colors, deep contrast, high brightness outdoors, a screen that just looks good every time they pick it up, and in those areas, this 60Hz OLED panel is still going to look stunning. Apple is betting that for this specific crowd, battery life and color accuracy matter more than scrolling smoothness. A 60Hz display uses less power than 120Hz, and that directly translates into better endurance, especially when combined with Apple's insanely efficient A-series chips. But that's only half the story of this display, because the real upgrade isn't the refresh rate. It's the death of the notch. For the first time, the budget iPhone finally looks like a modern iPhone. The iPhone 17e is rumored to be ditching that old, dated notch design and moving to the dynamic island. And this is where Apple's psychological marketing genius kicks in. When you pull the iPhone 17e out of your pocket in 2026, it's not going to scream cheap model anymore. At a glance, it's going to look like an iPhone 17, a current generation DEVICE, part of the same family as the Pro models. That dynamic island means you get live activities at the top of your screen, your Uber rides tracking in real time, your music controls floating up there, your timers, calls, and navigation popping in and out, exactly like on the Pro phones. It unifies the experience. It makes the entry-level iPhone feel like a true member of the flagship lineup. So while tech nerds will continue to rage about 60Hz, Regular buyers are going to see a phone that looks identical to the $1,000 flagship from the front. And that alone is going to help the iPhone 17e sell in the tens of millions. Now, if the display is the controversy, the performance is the apology. This is where the leaks around the iPhone 17e get genuinely exciting. According to current information, the iPhone 17e is expected to launch with Apple's A19 chip. Not a hand-me-down A18, not a recycled A17 Pro rebranded with a new name. We're talking about Apple's actual next-generation silicon. That is absurd power for this price bracket. The A19 is likely the benchmark, higher than a lot of thin and light laptops. But raw performance numbers aren't even the most important part here. The real headline is the RAM. Leaks are pointing to the iPhone 17e coming with a massive 12 gigabytes of RAM. For context, base iPhone stuck to 4 gigabytes, then 6 gigabytes, then 8 gigabytes for years. Even some premium iPhones today still don't touch 12 gigabytes in the base configs. Jumping to 12 gigabytes of RAM on the E model is not just an upgrade, it's a statement. Why would Apple do this on a lower-priced iPhone? 2 words. Apple Intelligence. We all know what's happening across the industry. AI is the new battlefield. And AI eats RAM for breakfast. On-device language models, image generation, advanced voice assistants, real-time translation, iPhoto, editing, background object removal. These features don't just need a fast chip. They need memory. Lots of it. By giving the iPhone 170 this much RAM. Apple is future, proofing it for the next 5 to 6 years of Apple Intelligence. This phone won't just be able to run today's AI features. It will be ready for features that haven't even launched yet. That's the difference between a phone that feels slow, bloated, and left behind in 2 years versus a phone that feels quick and responsive in year. 5 most mid-range Android phones play the opposite game. They give you a flashy 120Hz screen to look great on paper, then quietly cut corners on the processor and RAM to hit a price point. You get the smooth scrolling until the phone starts choking under heavier apps and new OS updates. Apple is doing the reverse. They're giving you a boring 60Hz panel on the outside, but dropping a Ferrari engine under the hood. That means with the iPhone 17e, you're looking at 4K and maybe even ProRes video editing without stuttering, AA level, mobile gaming with stable frame rates, real on-device AI tasks, summarizing, translating, generating content, heavy multitasking with multiple apps staying alive in memory if you care about longevity. If you buy a phone and keep it until it literally falls apart or the battery gives up, this spec sheet is basically a love letter to you. Now let's hit the next big talking point. The camera. In a world where every Android phone seems to brag about triple and quad camera setups, main, ultra wide, macro, depth, portrait, periscope, everything. The rumors around the iPhone 17e sound almost minimalistic. Leaks suggest that the iPhone 17e might ship with a single rear camera, just one main lens. At first glance, that feels like a step backward. No ultra-wide, no telephoto, no macro lens. What is Apple thinking? Here's the play. Computational photography. Apple is reportedly betting everything on one high-quality 48MP main sensor, backed by the raw power of the A19 chip and Apple's image processing pipeline. With that combination, one lens can behave like multiple lenses. It can crop into the center of that 48MP frame to deliver a lossless 2x zoom that looks like optical zoom. It can use machine learning for portrait mode, simulating shallow depth of field with incredibly accurate edge detection. It can run night mode, smart HDR, deep fusion, and whatever new AI-powered camera tricks come with Apple Intelligence. The reality is this: the vast majority of people rarely use their ultra-wide lens. The super cheap macro cameras you see on budget Android phones are usually marketing fluff with terrible quality. By focusing the entire hardware budget on one truly excellent main sensor, Apple is making sure that 99% of the photos normal people actually take their kids, pets, food, vacations, everyday life look flagship grade. It's quality over quantity. One great camera that works in all conditions is more valuable than three mediocre ones you only use twice a year. Design-wise, the iPhone 17's is expected to refine Apple's classic aluminum and glass formula. Clean lines, solid build, familiar shape. You're getting MagSafe support, which by 2026 is basically non-negotiable for Apple users. Face ID for secure, fast unlocking, the full Apple ecosystem experience. AirDrop, iMessage, FaceTime, iCloud, Apple Wallet, Apple Music, Apple TV Plus, and Apple Intelligence. This phone will drop into the Apple ecosystem like it was always meant to be there. And that ecosystem lock-in is a huge part of why these devices hold their value and stay in people's pockets for so long. Now, let's talk about the part that stings a little. The price. Current leaks suggest the iPhone 17e will land somewhere between $649 and $699.